Hello and welcome to Three Guys, One Cup. I am Dave Mankoff. I could lose this song all fucking day.
I'm Brett Kaminsky.
I'm Andrew Nopinski.
And on the screen today, we have Jim Bruckheimer. No, I'm just kidding. Jim, what was it again?
Joe Bernheimer, actually, my famous movie producer.
Exactly. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Jim?
Pretty good, except
Good.
your audio kind of went away.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're having random audio internet issues, which is always fun.
Always when we have guests on via Skype, I feel like everything starts to slow down for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Of course, just because the internet loves us so much that it does that automatically for us.
Yeah, it's Skype.
So how we doing, Mr. Famous book producer here?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you guys?
Good. Welcome to the show here. Tell us a little about yourself. Who are you? What are you here for? Why are you alive? Oh, I broke him.
Jesus Christ.
What have I done? My words have broken him and the internet.
Let's see. Who am I? Uh-oh. You guys got some problems over there?
Yeah, all of a
Yeah.
sudden you stuttered. We lost you for like 15 seconds.
We clearly use the best equipment you can buy, actually. We have such a good budget for the show here,
Okay, I think that fixed the problem.
You just disconnect the call?
Yep. Bye. No.
All right, Jim, you with us?
Nice being on the show.
We actually had someone do that once, and they literally got up and left and came back like 20 minutes later.
Yeah, it was really funny.
It's kind of awkward, actually.
So, okay, back to who you are and what you're here if the internet doesn't poop again.
Well, let's see. I'm in my mid-40s. I refuse to grow up.
High five.
Start writing professionally in about 2009. That's when I put out my first book, Horror, Humor, and Heroes.
Oh, he has it ready. Look at that.
Smart man.
Oh, actually, I've got all of them here. We got Horror, Humor, and Heroes Volume 2, Volume 3.
Wow.
Well, see, the first one was a short story collection of all my stuff, plus that 5-chapter novella that became Confessions of a D-List Supervillain. For the next two, I made them anthologies, where I'm still the editor and publisher of them. But I have one short story in each one of them, but I recruited everybody else to be in there and edited and did all that nonsense.
Oh, fun.
And I'm kind of a hybrid because I have a publisher for some of my books. There's the Deadeye series.
Oh, wow.
Busy man.
Killer called Spirals of Destiny. The second book's about done. That's going to be my next release. And
When does that come out?
it's right now, September, October. I've got to finish about 8 more chapters, and then get it edited. And, because editing's kind of important. At least.
I guess. I mean, once in a while editing's important, but so I started reading your book, and you hooked me like right away. You have what it reminds me of? I'll be honest. What it's because it's called, what's the full title?
Confessions of a D-list supervillain.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the book John Dies at the End?
I've heard of it, and I used to be fairly active on Permuted Press's message boards, and they were always talking about John Dies at the End because it originally came out as a Permuted Press novel, and then it was picked up by one of the larger ones. They also had another one that just recently, Peter Klein's X-Heroes series.
Yes. Well, that's what, like, your book, like, hooked me like that, where it just has you, you kind of don't know what's going on, but just jumps you in this universe, and you're kind of just feeling the wave of it going through it. And I
figure it
got
out
hooked.
as you go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm like 20 pages in, and I'm just like, I wish I wasn't working as much the last few days so I could read the hell out of it like Brett did. But it's really, really good so far, man.
Having an hour-and-a-half commute to work every day
That
helps.
is nice. That is nice. But it is really, really good. So I'm
Also available in audiobook format.
Yes, I will definitely be picking that up because I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I'm going to work and stuff too. Because I have to drive. Unfortunately, like Brett, I can't read while I drive.
Well, I do that too, but I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah, right. But it's really good. Why don't you?
Be safe.
Can you tell us a little bit about that book for people at home? Like, give them a little tease on it.
Well, it's about a down on his luck supervillain with one last shot at redemption, whether he really wants it or not. Yeah, he's kind of a butthead. I wrote him to be, and I tried to keep him true to being an anti-hero all the way through. He, through circumstances, his power is he's an engineer. He builds himself a super suit. He's a disgruntled engineer, in fact.
Aren't they all?
Yeah.
The Oompa Loompas of science.
Yeah.
But he built his own home-built power suit and turned to a life of crime because previously he worked for my universe's version of Iron Man, which would be called Ultra Weapon, and he's kind of ultra douchebag. But the Ultra Weapons company wouldn't let him put his patents on the inventions he made, so he's like, well, I'll go work for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And they came after him with theirs and like,
Jim, you completely dropped audio there for about 5 words, so we kind of lost the whole sentence.
Oh, okay. So it probably wasn't that important anyway.
Those are just swears. All those blank words are just swears.
It's self-editing.
Yeah. See, it knows what's not supposed to be on the program.
It's like spoilers. You're cut.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, see, it could be like a Mad Libs game for the people at home.
Yeah, exactly.
He does, and then he. No, I like how the
people seem to have really responded to it. I think they like the title. The artwork, I like the artwork. The young lady who did the cover art for me was only just finishing high school when she did that one.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's impressive.
That's really impressive. She also did the Spirals of Destiny and the last 2 Horror Humor Heroes ones.
So how does one go about commissioning cover art, just out of pure curiosity? Do you just kind of put out the thing like saying, hey, I'm looking for cover art, or do you give them like a creative like prompt of what your vision is?
Well, I missed like half of the thing because the audio started cutting out, but I'll go with it anyway. I deal around DeviantArt when I was looking for cover artists.
Okay.
And I started looking at it, like when I was first recruiting cover artists, I was looking for unicorns for the high fantasy novel. Mm-hmm. And I found someone who did it, and I contacted them. And I said, "Oh, how about for a commission?" And then for the recent ones, I've also looked around DeviantArt. I found this one guy. He's doing the cover. He did the cover to this one, which I haven't talked about yet, which is called Prime Suspects: A Clone Detective Mystery.
Oh yeah, that's the one that I have on as the cover art for the event on Facebook.
Yeah, it's my humble attempt to write Blade Runner. Honestly, that's how it started off. Whenever I write, I start off with an idea of what do I want to do with a book. And in this case, I thought, well, why can't I write Blade Runner from the eyes of the replicant?
Okay.
And what it turned out, what the book evolved into, was the story about a clone of a homicide detective living in a clone society. And, of course, if you're a homicide detective and everybody's clones, murder is kind of cheap. It's kind of almost like jaywalking. Mm-hmm. But in this case, he's a freshly created clone who's been brought into being to solve the murder of his prime. In this universe, primes are people with certain skill sets. I mean, didn't somebody say that they come out of an IT background?
Yeah, me.
Okay. Well, I'm a Citrix administrator.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And, and VMware, and I deal a lot in snapshots and backups. Mm-hmm. So, my theory coming out of the IT world was, that clones could be like snapshots and backups. You could take its genetic sample and a memory impression of this person at the same time, put them together and recreate the person as they were at that moment.
Yeah.
And so he's been created because somebody killed his prime.
Okay.
These primes, they get signing bonuses. They're kind of like superstars.
Yeah.
If you've got the right skills, if you're the best cop, best doctor, best mining engineer, whatever, you can get signing bonuses, cut of each clone's salary. You live the country club lifestyle on the back of your own created surf labor caste.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because
That's a terrifying thought.
you're
but it's
you're only screwing yourself over.
Yeah.
Really. And so he's been created because somebody killed his prime.
Okay.
And all the clues point back to one of his clones killing his prime. So it's kind of the take the locked room murder mystery to its extreme. The guy is the cop trying to solve it, the murder victim, and one or more of the murder suspects at the time. I really like it. I wish it sold more, but that's what happens.
I'll probably pick that up next. Is that on ebook as well, or is that paperback?
That's on ebook. That's on audiobook. All my stuff's there. Well, actually, the 2 volumes of the first Horror Humor Heroes is on audiobook, but the second 2 aren't.
Yeah. Which one? You said the anthologies, humor, horror, and what was the?
Horror, Humor, and Heroes.
There you go. That one
Kind of a mix, like the short. Oh, go ahead.
That one is you self-published that one more or less with other people's stuff as well as your own. How did you go about getting like an audiobook and stuff like that recorded?
Well, the first one was just all me. It was all my short stories.
Gotcha.
And the first 5 chapters of Confessions of a D-List Supervillain. Okay. So I had hooked up with the narrator who's done virtually all of my audiobooks, Jeffrey Kafer.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Are you interested in doing this?" And I seem to have made him some money. So
that
sure,
always helps.
Work. I mean, but he also does work for my publisher at Griffinwood Press, David Wood, who writes Men's Adventure, and then he also does audio work for like Jeremy Robinson, and just recently, I think he even narrated Clive Barker's Books of Blood.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he's got a name in the industry, so far, and I'm just happy to be riding his coattails.
Nice. Oh. Any way you can, right? I mean, if it works, it works. Who cares?
Yeah, I always joke that you have to kind of be a shameless self-promoter in this industry.
This is true.
We're
constantly
just
self-promoting on our own.
When I found you guys, I saw on off of like a Kickstart. I was looking into that nobility.
Oh, okay. Yeah, EJ.
Yeah, and I saw you guys had been interested in the thing, and I'm like, well, what do these guys do, and how can they help me?
And that's the important thing. I mean, yeah, it's all about getting your word, your name
how
out
can
there.
I use you in my maniacal scheme to take over? Well, I don't know. I just want to take over. I'm not going to take the world.
We welcome you as our overlord, then, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Exactly. Pun always intended in that.
Yeah, one of the characters in his book is called the Overlord.
Yes, I know.
Okay, I wasn't sure if
I'm that far,
covered. Okay. No, actually, before I forget, the thing that I liked the most about the book, Biz Markie was hilarious, especially since I didn't know he was a real person, and
that brings up a point. I like Stacey Mitchell. Is that based off of the real Stacey Mitchell?
Who's the real Stacey Mitchell?
Yeah, who is the real Stacey? What the hell?
I forget. I forgot what she is, and I don't have my computer to use.
Huh.
I do.
I'll Google it.
Well,
it was
when I had a visual in mind for Aphrodite's character, I was using that Victoria's Secret angel, Marissa Miller.
High five.
Oh, okay.
That's who I had envisioned for her.
Uh-huh.
I'm looking her up now. Marissa Miller.
Yeah, who doesn't love Biz Markie? I mean, I always joke karaoke song. I mean, because anybody could sing it and sound about like it. But it's an awesome song.
It is. I actually listened to it like 4 times at work today.
You probably wouldn't want to listen to it 6 hours in a row.
No, I would probably definitely lose my sanity.
But did you like the part where she had figured out how long the song was? That's how she figured out he was messing with her clock?
Yeah, that was genius. Actually, she's like, I know how long that fucking song is. Ah, you set my clock so it would have 32 hours in a day.
Well, and that was just another instance of Cal being an asshole.
Yeah.
And he's
he-
very good at it.
He very much fits that mold of I can't remember where I originally heard the phrase, but the villain being the hero of his own story.
Anti-villain. Or
Well, I do a lot of conventions, so I'm always on a lot of panels, and of course you want to get on the panels that help you promote your book. So I do a lot of anti-hero, supervillain, superhero panels, and things like that. And you always talk about the best villains, or even the anti-heroes, are the ones who don't really think they're the villains.
Yeah.
Right. Those are some of the best. The anti-heroes definitely a good thing.
Magneto, Lex Luthor, they don't think they're the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
They do bad things, but they do what's necessary. Actually, Cal, I like to think, is an anti-hero because he's a schmuck, and he's unashamed about admitting that he's a schmuck.
He's basically all of the worst qualities of Tony Stark to the forefront with his genius.
Yeah, right? That's
Like, that's a good way of looking at it. But
that's a very good way to look at it.
The overarching.
I like coming up with the other heroes in there. I wanted to kind of harken back to almost like the late 70s, early 80s comics where, they didn't really take themselves that seriously.
Uh-huh.
But with the names and the cornball adventures, Tyrannosaurus Rex.
That was awesome.
And yeah, at the same time, I wanted to do kind of an ugly backstory where whenever I write, I try to make it as realistic as possible because the more you force the reader to suspend their disbelief, the less chance they're actually going to buy into your novel.
Mm-hmm.
I try to portray everything as realistically as possible. If superheroes existed, they'd have marketing staffs, they'd have image consultants,
PR crisis control.
Exactly. And so I tried to include those little factors in there, or and things like that. Or like there's a scene where they're trying to he's trying to have a romantic date with Stacy, and they're on top of the thing, and the wind shifts, and they realize because of all the bug invasion and everything that the garbage hasn't been picked up in weeks, and it's like, oh god, it smells.
Just can't catch a break.
Yeah, exactly. But I really enjoyed writing that book, and people keep bugging me, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's my cash cow. You put all my other books together, and it sells about the same as that one sells as well as the other 8 put together. So I'm like, wow, I should really write more.
Yeah. What originally inspired you to sit down and write all these stories? Because you have a whole anthology, and like how many books total do you have out now that like solo yours plus the anthologies was like 9?
It's on 8. The one that comes out in September or October will be my 9th. Right now it's 5 novels, a short story collection, and 2 anthologies. Plus I've been in a lot of other people's anthologies. There's one called The Big Bad that came out just this summer in June. It came out right as I was at Con Carolinas with the other writers in it, and John Hartness, who writes Bubba the Monster Slayer and a bunch of other ones. He was the driving force behind it, and he put it together. And I've got a story in there. It's probably one of my darker stories, another anti-hero style one. But the premise of the anthology was about stories being told from the perspective of the big bad, the monster.
Yeah.
In this case, mine was a Nazi-created vampire fighting Russian-created zombies in the streets of Stalingrad.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Impressive. And I might actually take.
Yeah.
We lost you again.
Too.
Oh, geez.
Okay. Am I back?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, the internet just kind of took a dump again.
It doesn't want you to tell anything about spoilers.
Yeah,
it just freezes up.
Yeah.
That's because I got the.
the name of that story was I can't even pronounce it. My last name's Bernheimer, but I don't speak a lick of German. It was supposed to be Beast number 27, the closest approximation in German to it. So it's got this long German title to it. But yeah, I was hoping that, if I actually do sit down one day and write that story out as a full-length novel, it'd be basically All Monsters Must Die set in World War II.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, typically when I write like my short stories, I originally came out of the world of fan fiction. It's not as much of a it used to be that, if you said fan fiction, it was like, ooh, really?
Yeah.
But it's become much more commonly accepted, and apparently, Kindle's even publishing it now.
Yeah.
Through Kindle Worlds thing.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
You have to write certain, stories. You can look it up. It's called Kindle Worlds. But
That's really cool.
Yeah, they're publishing it, and it's, kind of a pay-per-play thing where they license out, and you have to split the profits with the owners of the world that you're writing in. But I don't know. I haven't looked at it too deeply because I'm more interested in pushing my own stuff right now.
Yeah.
Any Confessions of a D-list supervillain fanfic?
I know somebody wrote one a long time ago, but I couldn't find it. I saw it once, and it was one of the guys who used to read a lot of my other fanfics and everything like that. But I didn't get a chance to read it. But it would tickle me pink to see, some people actually start writing in that universe.
That went full
We'll
on
see how
like
it goes.
infinity on that. It's like someone's writing fan fiction of your fan fiction. It's like going 2 steps. You're like 1 step shy of Inception here.
But yeah, so I was hoping that I was like twice damned or something like that, because I was a former fanfic writer who then self-published.
Yeah.
Which is like the other cardinal sin of the publishing world. But
It's very much frowned upon, but there's a lot of people that have found great success from it.
Yeah, I feel like it's catching on. It's catching fire for sure.
I'm opened up a self-publishing account. I'm slowly but surely working through my story, but I get like a couple pages down, and then I hit a mental wall for about 3 weeks and just can't continue to write.
Yeah, it's difficult. It really is hard to write something like that. As you would know, Jim.
I use like Dragon Naturally Speaking, because I'll like talk my way through the scene.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
I use that. I mean, if you don't want to spend the money for Dragon, any Windows operating system from Vista on up has speech to text built into it.
Yeah, I use it to check on my dog and stuff when I'm at work. I remote into my computer, pull up the webcam, and turn on the text to speech and start talking to her. Freaks her out. I always mess with her and say, "Hey, where's Daddy?" And she starts going around the room freaking out.
Poor thing.
That's cold, man.
And then she eats my thumb drive, so it's a give and take.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you kind of have to get that thumb drive back some way, but
Yep. So
thanks for the image, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, right.
No problem. So what initially gave you the idea for D-list supervillain?
Oh, I wanted to write. It was something I thought I could write. I mean, I used to be big into the comics up until like the 90s. And nowadays, because I got 2 daughters, my hobbies have to make money.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. I had to stop collecting once I bought my house.
Exactly. You're like, because I went from comics, and then for a while I was into those magic cards.
Oh, Magic
Me
the Gathering.
too.
Yeah, and then I was like, man, I'm spending way too much money. That had to end. And then, I'm actually related to a famous author. I'm second cousins to Nora Roberts.
Oh, that's cool.
I've met her once in my adult life. The thing that bugs me the most is I went up there for the family reunion on that side of the family. Her real name was.
Spoilers.
Yeah. We'll never know her real name.
So
You cut out right when you were about to say her name.
Oh, okay.
It's the NSA.
Yeah. But anyway, her real name's Eleanor Robertson. So I went up to the Robertson side of the reunion, and I think they're having it in a couple weeks. But it was at her house, and I wasn't jealous of all the covers going up her staircase, or the fact that like 1 out of every 5 Lifetime movies is one of her books.
Well, at least it's good that you have those genes in
And
there, then.
the thing that got me was an indoor. Yeah, I'm like, that's my bar of success. If I get an indoor pool,
Heck yeah.
anything else, cars, houses, anything, give me an indoor pool. I'd settle for an indoor pool. But
That would be awesome.
But it works. But yeah, I used to read an awful lot, and then I stopped reading because I'd see stories and they wouldn't end the way I want them. I think, oh, I could do that if I could just, and then finally I'm like, well, I've stopped talking about it and just do it.
Yeah.
And, so I started writing stories. My very first short story that I ever sold went to Norm Sherman's Drabblecast, and it was a vampire short story about a vampire fighting with his life insurance company to get his death benefit. Well, the government was foreclosing on his estate. He needed the money, but of course the lawyers for the insurance company were like, we don't feel that you've truly experienced death at this point in time. You are the undead, which is neither living nor dead.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's like a bureaucratic nightmare. That's what that is.
Well,
It's like a
right?
trip to the DMV.
Exactly. The original idea for that story was actually a vampire who had to go to the dentist, but I was like, nah, it didn't quite work. Because I just wanted to, have people who have the same stupid problems, despite the fact that they're vampires or they've got all these unholy, unnatural powers, they still have to go to the grocery store, or they still have to do this, the same mundane crap that we have to go through every day.
Give the paranormal a taste of normal and just see how they react.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really good. Do these ideas just pop into your head, or do you sit down and just think about what would be crazy or hilarious?
Yeah, they'll kind of pop into my head all the time. I mean, another short story in there was I'd watch. It was inspired by that one fishing show on Discovery, The Deadliest Catch.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I'll sit there. I don't like, despite the fact I was in the Navy for 8 years, I don't really like being out on the water. I don't
Me
like
either.
fishing. I certainly don't like crab fishing. But I'll sit there and watch that show with drool coming out of the side of my mouth, going, "Oh."
I think so many men do that. It's
I just see it and I get hungry.
it's it's pretty much the manliest job in the world right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But so my short story was 20 years after the zombie apocalypse. Well, man had survived it and everything, but now the deadliest catch, the most dangerous job out there, were the people who ride around in these huge dump trucks who corral the zombies into them.
That is awesome.
And so the society, because I actually came up with a way, if you take a Lexan plexiglass wall, and I'm doing mime stuff now, but if you did that and you put somebody, drilled a few holes through it and put somebody on the other side of it on rollers, the zombies would just keep pushing it around. So I created these kinetic turbines. And so there was a market in this world for the zombies because they produced green energy.
Oh my God.
And so the people had to go out and catch the good zombies, the ones with their legs still intact, who could, keep these turbines moving, because it's still, too darn dangerous to work in a coal mine or, things like that.
Yeah.
And so, the whole world. I actually want to write a little bit more in that universe. I set it in Western Pennsylvania, because there are only 4 towns in the United States named Mars. And so I had to say, if I ever write the other rest of it and put it all together as a collection, it's going to be Mars Needs Zombies.
That's awesome.
That would be awesome.
But I just sit around and I'll come up with, oh, wouldn't that be cool? Sometimes the ideas won't stop pestering me. At the conventions, I'll sit there and I'll talk about this one short story that I have yet to sit down writing, but it's about a self-aware smart bomb on its way onto a mission that decides to call a suicide prevention hotline.
That is
So
awesome.
just trying to sort it all out. And, of course, this person answering the thing is the, prevention operator, and they're not really sure what or who they're talking to. They trace it back to ping back to a DoD firewall, and they're like, oh, this is military. I don't know about this.
Mm-hmm.
But and so, they start trying to talk the bomb down.
If they talk it down too far, it goes boom anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, I always come up with these, wow, wouldn't it be weird to write that? Or, yeah, and of course, about 4 years ago, I had an idea about a low-level video game character who wanted to try and get out of his game because he just hated his life.
No
And then
shit.
wow.
So he becomes like aware that he's in a video game then?
Yeah. Well, essentially, if I wrote it now, they just go, "Oh, he wrote a Wreck-It Ralph ripoff."
Yeah.
But I'm like, I had the idea 4 years ago.
You're like, that's my idea.
Wait, sorry, I was grabbing a beer. I missed it. What was
He had
it?
an idea that a video game character becomes aware that they're in the video game, like a low-level one, and wants to get out of the video game.
That's
Like
awesome.
basically, people who made Wreck-It Ralph, Pixar, just like stole his idea completely.
Ganked. That's what that is
Yeah.
right
I
there.
never wrote it, so and sometimes that's a driving factor. I mean, like I write. A lot of people go, why don't you stick to one series of books? I've got the Deadeye series going on. I got the Spirals of Destiny. I've got D-List, and I even want to write more Prime Suspects. But I'm like, well, if I don't get the idea out there, then I can't say, that I didn't write it.
Consider it a focus group.
Yeah, exactly. I always joke that I write what 4 out of the 5 voices in my head tell me to.
There you go. 4 to 5 can't be wrong, right?
There you go.
Exactly.
What was I going to say? Had a question and it just drifted right out of my head. Like as I started to speak.
Must have been a lie.
No, it was. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
Andrew has a toy sonic screwdriver that he got.
Laser screwdriver
Oh, okay.
Or laser
from Doctor
screwdriver.
Who.
Crap. That's gonna bug me now. It'll pop into my head randomly in about 20 minutes, so I'll remember.
So what for your? I always like to go in the process of like how to write these books and stuff like that. So how long does it take you to write the average novel that you write?
I remembered.
Good.
Wow.
Do you set like strict time limits for yourself? Like in 3 months, I need X amount of pages written or words written. Or
I
something?
set those limits, but one of the good things about being small press and also being self-published is that you can make the easiest person to lie to is yourself.
Okay, so they're like soft goals. You're like, I'll probably write this book sometime.
If I hit it, cool.
Yeah, right.
This way, people have been bugging me for 3 years for that sequel to Spirals of Destiny, and it's just now finally getting written.
Is it getting to like George R.R. Martin status where people are beating down your door saying, "Write the next book, damn it"?
Yeah, and the sad part is a lot of them are family, so I have to keep seeing them.
You have no choice. You can't hide away
Yeah.
from them, right?
Well, I mean, my wife, she finally broke down and read my novels. So, and then of course she read the Deadeye series. The Deadeye series is I wanted to write Buffy with ghosts. It's about a guy who comes back from Iraq. He's healing from his wounds, and he starts seeing ghosts, and he gets drawn into a world of conspiracy surrounding it all. And after she read that one, she goes, "That's my favorite. When are you going to write the third book?" I'm like, "Oh, okay."
You're like, oh crap.
Get writing, honey.
But yeah, but like I said, D-List outsells everything else. So
I
I'm
can
gonna
believe
cover
it.
for
It's,
D-List before, and then I'll go to the special request from She Who Must Be Obeyed.
Yeah.
let me make money first, and then I'll write the next story.
Well, the Deadeye do pretty well though.
That's good. Crap. You said you like to have like a dabble of like some overarching story or like moral story to the background, like very subtly, and I very much picked up on that in D-List Supervillain, and I told you over IM offline that that would be very similar to Terry Goodkind, and you said, "I hope I live up to it." You most certainly did.
Well, I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Despite the fact I don't think I've ever read any Terry Goodkind.
Me neither.
I know
Yeah.
that's sad, but
No, honestly, if you have the free time to read something, like if you just want something that's it's a totally original concept to me. I look at it not so much as a overarching like anthology or story. I think the total story, like main story, is 11 books, and he's got some like epilogue stories and then some short stories and stuff in the same universe. But the overarching main 11 book series is just like a primer of philosophy of like the likes of like Atlas Shrugged.
Haven't read that either.
Um,
Well, I told you there was this big time where I stopped reading, and because I just ran out of things that I wanted to read. I'd have these few things that I'd read over and over. I'm a big Robert Heinlein fanboy. I mean, I read Starship Troopers over and over again.
Heinlein is
I
awesome.
watched the movie. I'll cop to it. I watched the movie.
Yeah, you have to at least once.
Well, actually, no. I learned to appreciate it. Funny story about that. I went there, dragged my wife to see it. And she's not really one for blood, guts, and gore. And if you remember the movie, you've got exploding green blood all over the place, and
Oh yeah.
troopers ripped in half and everything. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh darn, I messed up." But the funny thing was we went to see that, and I was complaining about how they didn't do the book justice, because the book was it was powered suits fighting against oppression, against extermination, and there was this whole backstory about Rico's growth as a character. And then the funny part was, we went later on and we saw I want to say it was Star Trek First Contact, the one with the Borg.
yeah, good movie.
I took her to that one, and I was all excited to see this war movie, because if you remember the previews for that thing, it was they showed all the starship combat and everything fighting against the Borg cubes, and then you realize that the previews showed all the starship combat that was in the movie.
Pretty much.
All the rest of it was a retelling of Moby Dick with Picard and the Borg on one side. And then, so I was complaining that I wanted to see the action. And then my wife turned and looked at me, and she goes, "You're a hypocrite. You went to the Starship Trooper, you dragged me to the Starship Troopers movie and wanted to see, this high-minded thing, and then all you got was this, shoot 'em up popcorn movie, and then you drag me to, the Star Trek movie, and you start complaining that it's not a shoot 'em up movie." And I'm like,
You just wanted it both ways, right?
I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
yeah, and I feel like when I'm eating stuff, it's close to the taste of awesome sauce, but you never quite get it.
Right.
And that's, I prepackage a little bit of awesome sauce. See, that could be like a tagline: Confessions of a D-list supervillain. No, with 50% more awesome sauce.
Well, that's like in the same vein of how your book is written. Like, there are times where it's very tongue-in-cheek, where I read a paragraph and I'd reread it again because I was like, did he just say that? Like, that's hilarious. Like, I love that kind of, like, sometimes slight casual writing. It's awesome.
One of my favorite parts was when he's sitting on his throne thinking about what happened during the day.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I do that.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's not so out there that it's like it almost hits close to home, so it's like that could actually happen. I can see Superman sitting on the toilet taking a shit going, I shouldn't have ran into that building.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that same concept. It's just outside of our reach of reality, so it seems real.
Yeah. Well, that's what I try and do. I try and bring a little bit of that, keep the realism going. That, the heroes, they end up questioning themselves all the time.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I thought the book did masterfully, though, was the perfect amounts of time jump.
Yes.
In between, like, the blurbs. Like, there was scenes where he's, like, talking with somebody, and they're, like, getting ready to do stuff, and then it just jumps, and then it's him thinking about it later. It was just like perfect. It's like fills in the gap. It's like, oh, okay, this is what's going down, and then you just kind of have to think about it yourself and fill in that gap.
I mean, if they're the scenes you're talking about, then yeah, I don't really write smut.
No.
I'll imply the heck out of it.
Even the scenes where it wasn't sexually related, though, it was done. Yeah. The perfect amount of time lapsed where it wouldn't have been confusing, or you'd have to re-explain stuff or do flashback to fill in. It was like that perfect amount of time on everything.
Well, my theory on writing is I try and write tight. I mean, D-List was only
156 pages.
Yeah, it's 156 pages. I'm trying to think the word count. The word count, I think, was 62,000. But I want the feel of 100,000 words crammed into 60,000 words.
Yeah. No,
I like that.
and he succeeds. It's
Yeah.
masterfully written.
I like that.
Prime Suspects is only 56,000. It's actually a little shorter than D-List.
Huh.
And but I mean, it's a very good read, and I imply a lot of the background story in there. The way to write tightly like that is you have a paragraph, and then at the end of the paragraph, you have a little throwaway line that says something about the society. And when people look at that, usually like the last sentence they read in a chapter or the last sentence they read in a paragraph is usually the one that stands out the most to them.
Yeah.
And so I always try and put the most important little thing right there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Or have a little moral at the end of each chapter, if you will. When I wrote the Deadeye series, instead of calling them chapters, I called each one an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm trying to secretly, subliminally plant the idea that it might make a good television series.
Hint, hint.
Nobody's called yet, though.
Kickstarter.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
I know some guy who might be looking for some work.
Clearly, somebody's calling. They're gonna hook me up.
I know
Exactly.
someone who will be looking for some work shortly in between shooting his first and second seasons of his web series that got funded.
Exactly.
There you go.
Get the hookup. He's on the East Coast too. He's in Brooklyn,
Okay.
so not terribly far, I guess.
Yeah, maybe I'll text you after the show and figure out.
Yeah,
Maybe I can pitch it to him.
there you go.
But yeah, I always look for what makes good visuals for the reader. I want one of the things I did in D-List a lot was write stream of consciousness.
Yes,
You're
that's a
curious
very, very
as it's
awesome
going.
talent.
Well, I mean, one of the things you'll either love it or you hate it. You guys seem to have really enjoyed it from D-List. Is the fact that it's written first person present tense.
Yes.
And, so it's the action as it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I like first person. I'm most comfortable with first person because it really gives an intimate look, you and the character, and you typically only have the character's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see everything going on behind the scenes, when you do like third person omniscient.
Yes.
I wrote one of the I used to experiment with my fan fiction. I wrote 2 whole novel length fanfics in second person present tense just because I could, and people really enjoyed it.
How does one do that?
Just
Sorry, I'm
choose your own adventure one, but it actually worked.
so for those of us who haven't written very much and are far removed from high school, can you explain second person present
Second
tense?
person is, instead of saying I like in first person, it says you.
Okay.
And you basically one of the first short stories I sold after the vampire one, I sold to Griffinwood for an anthology. It was a second person present tense monster story where you were the immortal swamp monster roaming around your swamp and trying to fight off the humans that keep coming into it.
Gotcha. Okay. That's an interesting way of doing that. That's got to be incredibly difficult.
It can be, but I write, I used fanfic to try and practice writing and, write something, and it could have been crappy to prevent myself from writing it further down the road. There's the old saying about you have to write 1,000,000 words of crap.
Yeah.
Necessarily know if I wrote 1,000,000 words of crap, but some of it was pretty crappy.
What were you writing fan
I
fiction
got it out of my. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
What were you writing fan fiction of?
Believe it or not, Harry Potter.
Really? Okay.
Yep. Oh yeah, there's if you do you guys actually read fan fiction,
yeah.
or you get caught to
No,
it?
I've never actually read any fan fiction, but I've read all of Harry Potter. So what better place to start with fan fiction than something
There's
that's
like
got a massive following.
over 500,000 stories up there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, really?
Fanfiction.net.
Yeah.
But I wrote some there. I get a lot of. In fact, the second volume of Horror, Humor, and Heroes. This was all fanfic writers that I recruited.
Oh wow.
Said, hey, you guys want to cut your teeth on some original fiction? One of the stories in there is called On Crystal Shores by an author named Joe Ducey, he's an Aussie, and he's gone on and he's written several good books. I'll go ahead and plug him here because he's a friend.
By
The
all
Broken
means.
Quill and Distant Star are his two ones, and I know he just got picked up for a publishing contract. He has one called The Rig that just came out. But yeah, Ducie, Joe Ducey.
Cool.
But I've read Distant Star. I haven't read Broken Quill yet. He's got a really great writing style, and I'm always happy to give a helping hand out to fellow writers.
Well, once I finally, in about 3 years, when I'm actually done writing mine, I'll send you a manuscript.
Yeah, sure.
Wait,
or if you want to see a chapter in progress.
Jim, I have a question for you really quick. So I interrupt you.
Yeah.
With the Harry Potter fanfic, did you say what the title was of that, so people can go out and search it?
Oh, you can search on fanfiction.net for J. Byrne.
Okay.
Letter J and BERN. And to be honest, I should have done something else with that and then just kept J. Byrne for my pen name.
Yeah, right.
Because if you look here, you see the name goes all the way across the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is long in German.
And I always joke that when the first bits of advice that I give an aspiring author, if I do, like I said, I do a lot of convention panels. I'll do a lot of self-publishing panels, and there's this one story that I always say if you can give one piece of advice to a person who's getting into the writing field, what would you do other than don't?
Right.
I always say go with the pen name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go into a long story about why I suggest pen names. My cat's already out of the bag, but I sent Horror Humor Heroes overseas in a PDF to a British website, and the guy there had an absolute mad-on for self-publishers and fanfic writers, and he ripped it to shreds. And it's the only bad review that Horror Human Heroes has ever gotten. And he ripped into it, and then he started doing like an armchair psychoanalysis of me based on my writing.
Oh no!
Wow.
Yeah, seriously.
What a prick.
And
those pretentious British bastards. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he basically said that, as bad as my short stories were, the biggest mountain of crap or load of shit or whatever, would think was Confessions of a D-List Supervillain. He really disliked it. And now I'm really pleased that you guys liked it. And in fact, I can, say that it was, up until a couple weeks ago, the #1 rated superhero novel on Amazon. Then they recategorized and they moved it in like this one lady's superhero novel that's kind of Twilight-ish, and it has better ratings than mine, and I dropped to #3. But
I digress.
But it is also in the top 100 of all science fiction novels as rated on Amazon.com.
Which is awesome.
It was, last time I checked, it was like number 61.
That's awesome.
It's really good. I like your style of writing in it, and I'm actually gonna pick up your other books as well, because I like the style of writing, where it's a little bit, sometimes a little bit more relaxed. Like it's a little bit, I feel like our generation's way, like John does at the end, where there's traditional writing in there, but it's not the most traditional book in your mind,
There's a very clear difference in the vernacular, for lack of a better word, where you're not going to get all the excess crap. Like you said, you want 100,000 words of content squished into 60,000 words. And I feel like people like J.R.R. Tolkien and stuff, they add so much extra crap there that probably doesn't actually need to be there to tell the story.
Right, you leave a little to the imagination, a little bit of the theater of the mind.
Yeah, theater of the mind. That's what I was going to say.
I try to do that. I try and... Well, one person gigged me on a D-List on a review. They said that, I never really once described his armor in great detail.
Right.
Yeah. You never actually described Cal either.
Right.
Brief, like very little.
Yeah, I mean, he had blonde hair. He was kind of, he had eczema, some bad skin condition going on. And
some acne.
A couple people have accused me of, like, self-inserts, and I'm like, no, I'm a fat guy with a... retreating hairline. Actually, it's in like full retreat. It's like the French, it's surrendered. But yeah.
But you kind of
So
let
anyway.
the
But
reader.
if you guys wanted to hear the end of that one story about the pen name, is that the guy, one of the short stories in Horror, Humor, and Heroes makes an off-color joke about a certain kind of sex. And so his title of his review was "The 8-Week Waiting List for Butt Sex,"
Oh no!
attached to my name.
Oh.
Now, I work for a job that requires a security clearance.
And the NSA cut you off.
I have 2 young daughters who will eventually be growing up, and they might Google their old man to see what the people say about him. And it's not necessarily a great thing to have the words butt sex attached to your name onto the internet.
I can attest to that. There's actually someone named Brett Kaminsky in the United Kingdom who was arrested at 34 years of age for assault, battery, and rape.
Oh,
So
that's
yes.
nice. Yeah, there is only one other James Bernheimer that I know of in the country. He's a neurosurgeon in Baltimore, and he's actually a fan. He's read and reviewed my books. I don't know that we're actually related, but we've friends on Facebook. He's a huge Orioles fan, and he reads all my books, and he actually wants to write like a sports memorabilia kind of book. I believe, but yeah, so it's a. You and I have names that kind of would stand out because there's not too many of us.
Yeah.
But, if I was just like Fred Smith or, whatever. But, so yeah, that's why I always recommend the pen name.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of pen names and Harry Potter, of all things, did you hear about what J.K. Rowling did in releasing a detective novel under a pen name?
Yeah.
Which was brilliant because the pen name lasted like a day.
Rejected by a whole bunch of publishers. It didn't sell very well, and all of a sudden it got leaked. But supposedly it wasn't leaked on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's got enough money.
Yeah, she's the first author to become a billionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane, and she was just broke.
Yeah, she was like dead broke and wrote it on a napkin or something like that. I did see a thing on Uberfacts on Twitter the other day. It said that she wrote the last chapter of Half-Blood Prince 9 years before she wrote the first book. Like, she knew how it was all going to end like years before she even wrote down the whole story.
I heard that was a rumor, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, Uberfacts tweeted it. It's got to be true.
Yeah, right. It's on the
It's
internet.
on the internet.
Well, I kind of, one of the reasons I wrote a lot of Potter fan fiction was I didn't like the way the last few books ended. I thought the wheels started coming off in the 5th book.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, throughout all the book, this formula that she went with, which was Harry doesn't know what's going on. No one's going to tell him. There's the big adventure where he has to find out. He makes a bunch of mistakes on the way. And then, at the end, everything makes sense.
Yeah.
And that worked through the first 4 books, really. And in the 5th book, it started getting kind of ludicrous with him being dragged up in front of this tribunal, the Ministry of Magic thing going on, and you're like, at this point, you're like, really, no adult's really going to sit here and say anything? They're just going to let it go.
Well, it's just like our current Congress, though. It's speaking to an American Congress. They judge everything and don't think about anything. Just sign.
One of the short stories in here, in the first Horror Humor Heroes, was about the first zombie to run for Congress. Slogan was "Vote for Brains."
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, and we always joke, well, like we'd notice if there were any zombies in Congress.
Yep.
I thought they were there already.
Yeah.
They extended the NSA wiretapping thing for another 3 months. The Prism or whatever it was that was combing Verizon records.
Oh, it's only 3 months now?
Yeah, they extended it for another 90 days.
Weird.
Oh.
Like, no contest, like, no problems passing. It's like, really, people?
I heard it was a lot closer, though, than they thought. They thought it was going to pass, like, even more, but that it was a little bit closer than they had anticipated, which shows that some of those representatives are kind of...
waking up.
Yeah, they're a little like, I'm not as comfortable as you want us to be,
Yeah. Anyway, back to real...
happy thoughts.
Happy thoughts. I just got depressed.
I'm not gone.
You what? You're already gone? What other Yeah, you said you stopped reading for a while. I'm assuming you started reading again the way you phrased it.
Well, honestly, when you start off as a writer, you then become part of the great giant support group out there. Like I'm on the Permuted Press message boards, and I just finally got back to that. But you read other people's manuscripts.
Uh huh.
I read an awful lot of people who haven't been published yet and are still trying to work out, and they're looking for honest opinions on it. Sometimes I find myself a little too brutally honest, but I read a lot of people's stuff. I say what I think you can do better, where things are going off the tracks. I'm trying to think who's Thom Brannon, who writes. He wrote Lord of Night.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading that in the Pit, or no, the Pendulum. The Permuted Press has two writing boards: the Pit for short stories and the Pendulum. Obviously, the Pit, the Pendulum from Edgar Allan Poe.
Right.
The Pendulum was the novel length critiques, and I remember reading that in there. It was a very good, excellent book there. Gave some feedback. Hopefully, I ended up in the author credits, for thanks. But I get Paul Tobin wrote a book called Prepare to Die, another superhero novel, and I was actually sent the manuscript by one of the people at the Nightshade Press, the publishing company, and they said, "Would you read this and give us a jacket blurb on it?" And I'm like, "Wow, somebody actually wants to put my name on the book that says, 'Here's what I think of this book.'"
Uh-huh.
So that a lot of times just those little weird things that'll happen to you when you start publishing and you're writing and people are actually reading your stuff make it all worthwhile. I mean, the first time I was at a convention in Myrtle Beach, because it was a really good reason to take the wife and kids to a convention in Myrtle Beach.
Heck yeah.
But I was there, and this one gentleman walked by, saw my stuff, and he did a double take, and he's like, "Wow, you're here?"
Oh wow.
And that was like the most awesome feeling, because you get a whole bunch of little firsts. The very first convention that I did as a author guest was Con Carolinas in Charlotte, and that was the year they had Jerry Purnell as their guest of honor. And so the very first panel that I ever participated on as a panelist, they had the guest of honor on it, and they made me the moderator. So I'm sitting here asking, at the time I had Horror Humor Heroes in the first D-list, or not the first Deadeye out. And so here I am with these two little books, are in rinky-dink sales, and I'm sitting here asking questions to Jerry Purnell and several other people. I think A.J. Hartley was on that panel and a few other ones. And, like Purnell's sold millions of books, a titan in the industry. And I'm like, I got you.
You're like, I'm a writer too, guys.
Look at me.
Me too.
That's got to be like the ultimate fanboy experience.
Get out there, you get on these panels, and the last Con Carolina's I'm sitting there on this panel with over on the far side was Aaron Rosenberg. He writes an awful lot of the media tie-ins. It was a thing about media tie-ins and writing in other people's worlds. I was there representing the fanfickers, and but Timothy Zahn, who writes all these Star Wars novels and things like that, he's on the panel. He was the guest of honor, and I got to hang out with him. And then Faith Hunter, who writes she writes she has a very successful series, and I really can't recall the title of it right now.
I'm telling.
Or no, actually no, it wasn't Faith Hunter. She wasn't on that panel. It was Gail Z. Martin, and she writes a very successful series on her own. And then there was A.J. Hartley, who also wrote he wrote a Game of Thrones style version of novel adaptation of Hamlet.
Oh, interesting.
Which apparently had never been done before. Nobody's ever novelized the play. So, it was a whole panel about writing in other people's worlds, and I'm up there with Timothy Zahn, who created Grand Admiral Thrawn for, LucasArts. And I'm like, wow, I get to do this? Cool.
That's when you started making steps into like getting somewhere. It's like, I'm being asked to do things that normal people wouldn't be asked to do. That's got to be like the ultimate fanboy experience.
Yeah, I mean, you get to do a whole bunch of cool things. I mean, I always recommend to writers. I mean, don't get me wrong. Conventions is a huge money pit.
Money
I mean,
pit, you said?
unless they're top tier guests, you're not getting paid to go there. You're shelling out for the hotel room, the driving, the meals, and everything like that. And if I usually sell enough books to pay off my my table fees,
Mm-hmm.
then I call it a win. It's great for socializing. I mean, with John Hartness, that's a novel into the Big Bad Anthology. Uh, been on Gail Z. Martin's podcast several times. I've met in Carolinas. I just happened to get onto the Carolina Ghostbusters podcast called Sci-Fried Eggs.
Yeah,
It was kind of funny. They were sitting set up right across from me, and they were waiting for the guest of honor, who was the actress who played Dee on Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
They said she'd be like 30 minutes late, and so I looked at them. I held up my books, and I'm like, "You guys want to interview me?"
Shameless self-promotion.
Exactly. You got to be shameless.
That's
you
perfect.
run right over there, and they did an interview. They read D-List. Actually, no, the one guy read Prime Suspects and really enjoyed it. And so, yeah. And like I said, you got to go out. You got to look for people. You got to look for other venues to reach people, because your viewers probably haven't heard of me before, other than the ones I invited to come along. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us. My wife's upstairs watching on the phone.
Well, that's what, like, the cool thing about the internet is it's so available to do that, to connect to people, to just you constantly have to be kind of pounding that door to get your name out there, because there's an infinite number of people out there, it feels like, that can read your book.
And know what's crazy is the comment that he's talking about on the Nobility Kickstarter page was Jim reached out to us to come on here and talk about his stuff, which was awesome. And Curtis Fortier did the same thing. You guys were the first two people to actually reach out to us. Usually I'm out there like commenting on people's stuff like, hey, you want to talk to us? Hey, you want to talk to us? And usually you don't even get a response. So when I had somebody reach out, it was like, awesome. This is really cool.
Right. Props to you for doing
trust
that.
me, I know an awful lot of writers, and I invited several of them, and I didn't put it up on Kindle boards. If you want writers to come talk to you, go to Kindle boards.
I'm down.
You'll be beating them off with a stick.
Beating them off with both hands.
Yeah, right?
Exactly. But,
Only you, Brett.
But yeah, I mean, we'll take a place like Kindle boards, and they have that writers cafe. You can go hang out in there. I mean, that young lady Amanda Hawking, who's become a big sensation, she used to frequent the boards all the time. I don't know she's there now, but I do know that he's all over that board. So you guys still here?
Who is? Sorry, you dropped.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just saying, apparently, more spoilers.
Yeah, right. He was just giving more secrets away.
Yeah, giving tricks of the trade away.
Yeah, well, no, I was just saying that, like, on Kindle boards, you can actually go into the Writers Cafe and interface with several writers, and it's not just, guys trying to get up to the second, third ladders, like, rungs of the ladder like me, but, people who are up there like Hugh Howry, who has the Wool series, that's very popular. He's on that board a lot, and, it's a way to network, and going to conventions is definitely a way to sit there and network and get your name out there and mingle. You find out what works for other authors, and then you try your best to imitate it. Because that's what it's all about. You want to be successful.
Yeah.
I want to be the guest of honor at a convention someday.
Right. And you see, it appears that it takes a lot of hard work like that to really put in those extra hours to do stuff like come on to this and go to cons and just get your name out there. You just got to keep reminding people that you exist,
Yeah, we were hoping to go to Chicago's C2E2 next year and do live event coverage, but it's several $1,000s worth of equipment. So we're going to attempt to do a Kickstarter again, and hopefully we've got enough reach now where we can actually make it happen, because with G4 being gone and stuff, there's nobody covering conventions like that. I would love to be a podcast like network on the floor of San Diego Comic-Con and C2E2, and it would just be really cool to do since no one else is doing it, and you get to meet so many cool people, and just the power of the internet. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. You can get to meet these actors and actresses. A couple of years ago, when I was at Con Carolinas, I had the table next to me. Griffith Press had our table in the vendor's room, and then right next to me was a guy named Bill Blair, who does an awful lot of character acting. But he's been on like almost every episode of Star Trek from Next Generation on as some kind of alien.
Oh wow.
And he was on like Buffy and several other ones, I believe. But then the table beyond that was Claudia Christian from Babylon 5.
Hey, we know that name.
Yeah, we do.
And then the final table was Richard Hatch from both Battlestar Galacticas. And, up on my Facebook page, if you dig back in the archives, I've got pictures of me posing with them in the books and everything like that. You get to hang out like at the Myrtle Beach, the X-Con. They had T-Dog and Merle from The Walking Dead.
Oh, cool.
I got to hang out with them and hold up my book with them when I take pictures and, product placement.
They're endorsing this. Not really, but they are.
Well, what you gonna do? But yeah, I mean,
you're an actor. You should be used to having people shove words in your mouth.
And other things.
So what other questions you got? What other advice can I impart?
Okay, so I finished D-List. What would you recommend I read next?
All of them. I mean,
like in order. If you had to say in order of, like either
awesomeness.
Of awesomeness, awesome sauce. What would you say would be the next best one to read?
Well, if you like Butcher's Dresden Files stuff, then I'd go with the Deadeye series. The Deadeye series, the sarcasm, I write a lot in the first person since it's my most comfortable venue. Deadeye, I kind of wrote him as a throwback to all those Magnum PI and Jim Rockford, the kind of the detective types who don't get the girl, they don't get the money, and usually if they ever do, it comes with a lot of problems. I wrote it down on his luck guy who could see ghosts, and he's the ferryman, from the Greek myth of Charon the ferryman.
Yeah.
And a lot of these ghosts don't want to cooperate and go back over to the other side, and they've got their own little schemes and agendas going on. If you like that kind of thing, like I said, I tried to do Buffy with ghosts. But if you like something like Blade Runner-ish, then Prime Suspects. If you like a little murder mystery, I really tried to write a murder mystery in a science fiction setting, not necessarily a sci-fi novel with a murder mystery.
Gotcha. Have you ever thought? So I'll probably pick that up probably tonight when I get home. I'll definitely be downloading that. I just had a question.
Here, I
did it again.
Nice plug, by the way, for Prime Suspects. I love that you have audiobooks because I love reading, but with my work schedule and meeting with people and stuff and doing the show like this, I don't have a lot of time to just sit and read. Like, it really makes me aggravated that I don't do that at night or anything like that. So audiobooks are what I turn to, like on Audible and stuff like that. And I love how your stuff's available on that. So huge props, because that's exactly what I'll be buying your books on, is Audible and listening to them.
It's a great way to spend one of your Audible credits. And by the way, review, please.
Exactly.
Oh, I'll be writing one. Don't worry.
For sure.
Because I will also be shamelessly plugging this interview on the comment review.
There you go. Brett's also a little bit of a businessman, if you can see.
I work in advertising, so it's my job.
It is.
It's my job to be a shameless self-promoter.
But, it's good to see that an independent writer like yourself having audiobooks, because that to me is huge, because I think audiobooks are very, very large, especially with me. That's really what I focus on the most is I'll listen to a book if it's on an audiobook, I wouldn't be as apt to buy a book itself and read it, because I'd be afraid I wouldn't have enough time. But an audiobook, I can enjoy those, theater of the mind. I listen to them while I drive or while I'm getting ready in the morning,
Say what you want about Amazon being the big beast and driving people out of business and everything, but they've revolutionized the publishing.
Oh my God, yeah.
With Kindle. I mean, a few years ago when this first came out in 2009, I was like, I can make my own book through CreateSpace.
Right.
I can, and order it, and it can go. And I was like, well, as an afterthought at that point in time, I was doing the electronic stuff. I already out format it for Kindle, and my first few attempts were kind of laughable. But, you know, shortly afterwards, it was like, well, okay, I can get a book, I can get an ebook, and then Amazon bought Audible, and now I can get an audiobook because they created that whole ACX uh, where authors can put up their test things, and narrators and producers can come along and say, hey, I want to do this audiobook, and you're like, oh, let's do an audiobook together.
That's cool. I didn't know Amazon owned Audible.
Yeah, I just saw that. Did they buy them recently?
Within the last year.
Oh, okay.
It's been probably about 10, 12 months that I know of.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
That's when the ACX started, which really made it reachable for the small press people. Before then, it was like, okay, you're getting an audiobook, you're a big... I mean, I actually paid a production company to do the audiobook of D-List before they had ACX came up.
That is awesome. It's so cool that you can do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I always joke that because Kindle will sell all over the world, and CreateSpace will print books in Britain and send them into Europe and various other places, that I have an international multimedia empire. I do paperbacks, I do audiobooks, and actually my international multimedia empire is more like a international multimedia banana republic, but yeah.
Right. But it still works now. It's growing, right? Always increasing population. That's a good way to look at it.
It's crazy that before the Kindle, there was really no way to efficiently self-publish.
No, you would order production runs, and you'd have boxes of books sitting in your garage. Now I maintain enough for the next 2 conventions I plan to go to, and then when those start to run low, I order more, and they arrive at my doorstep.
Which is so awesome that you can do that now.
Yep.
It's the power of the internet. I love it.
Yeah, we've talked about that on here several times before. We started recording a little over a year ago. Yeah. This is our 52nd episode. And we've said like 3 years ago we couldn't even do this unless you wanted to drop like $4,000 on Apple software and another like $1,000 on recording equipment. You just could not do it. We literally one day sat down, like, we should all do a podcast. Sat down for 30 minutes, talked about it, tried to record it with some really scrapped together stuff, and it just came out horribly and echoed. And like, okay, let's really figure out how much it would cost for us to do this. We're like, oh, it's $200. Okay, went to Guitar Center, bought some microphones, audio mixer, and we're golden. We're up and live.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Kafer, the guy who does my audiobooks for narration, he talked about how he used to work for Microsoft in game development, and he talked about how to set up his own, how he decided to, after he kind of got laid off, to set up his own audio recording studio, because I think he used to do some of the voices in games, and so he said his original recording studio was in his closet with lots of coats hung up and everything, and a few $100s of audio equipment. And he was later able to upgrade it as the cost of everything came down, and the technology got better. And that's why I think is kind of revolutionized the audiobook market, is the fact that now people can get their own home audio equipment and produce good quality sounding stuff.
Right. This is like, this little studio is just in my apartment, and it's very, very cool that we can do that.
Fortress of Davidtude Studios.
Exactly. So it's very cool that we have the ability to do that and the know-how, and it doesn't take much, honestly.
No, it doesn't. It takes a little elbow grease and you're up and good.
Yeah.
Until the mixer decides to take a dump.
They do that, though. Technology dies, or your internet decides it's not going to work 100% right now.
Because you don't pay your bills.
Yeah, you got to pay your bill. I noticed that.
Yeah, bills are nice.
They're good. They'll shut down your internet if you don't.
They're nice for somebody.
Yeah, right? Someone's got to get paid.
Unless they're the Buffalo Bills. Then the Buffalo Bills are excellent.
Exactly. That's where it is right there. All right. Well, Jim, I do appreciate you coming on, man. Everybody go out and buy his book. It is called
Confessions of a D-List Supervillain.
Thank you.
And Prime Suspects. And Prime Suspects is your newest one?
That's the one that came out most recently. It came out, I want to say, August of last year.
Okay. So yeah, go pick those up. We'll put links to it on our site so you can check it out and order up. I'm personally going to be buying Prime Suspects in about 2 hours when I get home.
And reviewing it.
And shamelessly plugging this episode.
Yes. It all works.
Have me, guys.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
forget, my website is jimbernheimer.com.
And your facebook.com/Jim Bernheimer author?
Yeah, I
Or
think
author
so.
Jim Bernheimer?
We'll put
One
a
of the
link.
two. We'll link it.
We always link everything on our on the
Yeah, I was
page.
to say somebody trolled me and they put up a writer. Yeah, there's you can have like a writer profile and an author profile, and there's one on Facebook that's just kind of like slams me, and it's great when you have your own troll.
That's how you know you've made it. Is
Yeah.
when people start
Yeah.
trolling you big time on the internet like that. That's how you know you're successful.
Exactly.
Yeah, and of course the first time I found out that my books were being pirated.
Really?
Wow, then you know you've made it.
Yeah, that's a huge honor.
Sorry, I should specify that when I said I'm going to go home and download it, I meant off of Kindle.
Yeah, he's gonna buy it. He's gonna give
I
you
am
money.
going to buy it.
The check's in the mail.
Yes,
Jim.
they're affordably priced.
Yeah.
They really are. They're really
Was
inexpensive
it-
on
I think
Amazon.
Prime Suspects on Kindle was $3.99.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is my most expensive one, and everything else is $2.99 except for the original Horror Humor and Heroes, which is a mere 99 cents.
I will
Right.
buy it.
Exactly.
Sold.
I'd buy that for $1. That's the thing. You can go on Amazon and buy these and do it, review it, and we definitely will go check out more of your books and read them, and
Definitely.
hopefully we can have you on again soon, man.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for coming on.
Once I get enough confidently written, I will most definitely be sending you a pre-draft of my Space Odyssey.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Have him edited for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I will at least read the first chapter, and I will give you my opinions on the first chapter, because that is
Probably the most important is what
the
you're
first
going
chapter
to say.
key. You pick up a bookstore and they'll read the first 7 pages, and if it hasn't gotten them in 7 pages, you're not going to get them.
Right,
Yeah.
and you're right. That's exactly like what happens with a lot of books. I'll read the first 10 or 20 pages, and if it hasn't gotten my attention, if I'm not curious, I'm going to put it down. And your book definitely had me hooked within the first 5 or 6 pages. I was interested in what was going on in this
It's
universe.
just the tone of it. It's very inviting.
Yeah, it's very. You just want to know what's happening and how are they going to get out of it and what's going on and how hot Aphrodite is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I think within the first day, I got it. I downloaded it on Monday. I think with the first day, it's like I'll read the book for a little bit and then watch some TV. 3 hours later, I'm like, TV. Watch TV for a half hour. I'm like, there's nothing on. Back to the book.
Yep. And that's a look of a good book. So, all right, well, check out your stuff on Amazon. We'll put links on all of our website. And again, thank you for coming on. We'll hope to talk to you soon, okay?
All right, take care.
All right, you too, man. We're just going to do a quick wrap up here. If you want to hang out for a quick second, you can. Definitely go to geekify.tv, which is our website, and click on the On It banner.
or just go to onit.geekify.tv.
You could also do that. Go to onit.geekify.tv
My
and
books.
buy Jim's books. If you click on it and buy their stuff, like the Alpha Brain, we've talked about their stuff ad nauseum. We love their stuff.
TPC is on about a 6-week back order. So is
Yeah.
Hemp Force, I believe.
Yeah,
too.
because
And
it's
T+.
so popular. Because people buying the hell out of it, like me and you, Brett. They have
Far
sold
too
out.
much.
But as long as they have Alpha Brain, you're okay for a little while until they can get all that stuff back in.
And they just did release today the 2-pood Primal Bell.
They did. The thing is
72-pound
freaking
kettlebell. It's
insane looking.
massive.
Have you seen it?
It's aggressive looking.
It is very scary.
I recommend it. Go order it now through us.
It'll
And
sell out quick too.
I'll be surprised if it's still available tomorrow morning.
Right. So we get paid by them, but go check them out for sure. Definitely, again, check out Jim's books. I see them out of the corner of my eye on the TV.
We've got
flashing
the
them across.
slideshow of books across the screen.
Ever promoter Jim here. Thank you, everybody.
And now in rewind.
Yeah, exactly. And now backwards. All right. Thank you for watching this show, and we will be back. What are we plugging next week?
Next week, the second episode of Science with John Zeller of Penny for NASA. We'll be interviewing him about his efforts. Guy's only like 19.
Yeah.
Owns he's president and founder of a nonprofit organization aimed solely at increasing NASA's budget.
Kids these days, what happened to doing drugs and stuff like that? Come on, kids.
now they're entering robotics competitions and trying to get more NASA funding
Trying
and
to better
supporting STEM
society?
skills.
What the fuck?
So
Craziness. But yeah, we'll have him on next week, so that'll be fun. Thank you all for tuning in. I am Dave Mankoff.
I am Brett Kaminsky,
I'm tired.
and you are, sir.
Jim Bernheimer.
Buy his books. Go out and do it now. We are too. All right, everybody. Good night and good night.